Good afternoon.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. So honored.
Absolutely. How was your holiday?
It was good. It was good. Flew in from New York back to Louisville, Kentucky, and had it with family here with my mother's side. So yes, it was in Kentucky. They know how to cook. So
Right.
I was my stomach was filled.
Yeah. And so, where are you originally from, Ronnie Green?
I am originally from Washington D.C. Look, upper northwest Washington D.C.
Home of the Go-Go music.
So, and originally from DC up in Northwest, because some people say, you are you really from DC? No, DC within the city limits, Northwest, right beside Walter Reed. So that's where I was raised.
Okay.
That is okay. Awesome. Now, how's the weather up there? I hear.
Well, in Kentucky, it's gotten cold finally, but it was hot here, just like it had been in some other parts of the country where it was still getting like 60 and 70. But now it's finally really feels like a winter finally.
Oh my goodness! I know my youngest son in just reached DC, and it looked like it was blistering cold. I was like, "Oh no, that's okay."
The
I,
seasons
I,
are
li-
changing.
yeah, they were really wrapped up. But it's getting really chilly here in Oklahoma as well. But I guess it is that time of the season. Are you ready
We
for
can.
the holidays?
Not really, because since the weather was so crazy, like my mind was still thinking that it was like the end of summer.
Right.
So like my mind was it's my birthday's in December also. So it was like people kept on saying, "Oh, your birthday's coming up," and I'm like, "Is it?" Because we really didn't have a fall yet. Because I
Yeah.
love fall, so I love to dress up in fall. So it was like I didn't have
Hmm.
that time
Ah,
to add those layers. I like to put
yes.
on a shawl collar, cardigan, scarf. I didn't have
It,
that really time to do that. So my
Yeah.
mind and body was like,
It went from
oh, it's
shorts to coats.
right. It went to short.
I bought shorts on one day, going to work, and then I needed to pull out the jacket, and I had layered her up.
yes.
Right, right. There was no in between of that fall. It was just like shorts to straight to like winter wear.
Yeah.
And so here we are. We are so honored to have you on our podcast because your resume reads like the who's who of entertainment. That's the question is like, so who has he not worked with? Not who has he worked with?
And why I love you so much, Ronnie, is that you're so humble, and I think your friends hype you up in the right way and tell you the truth sometimes, and it may sound like you're more than what you think you are, but you are great, and I just want you to know that.
Oh, I received that. I received that.
Yeah.
I do receive that because it was like when your introduction, I was like, ooh, I was like, it reminded me. It took me back. Now, did you do pageants at all?
Miss Sherry.
You said, I'm sorry, you said
Miss Sherry, did you ever work with pageants or anything like that, or do pageants at all?
no.
Because that introduction just reminded me of like the old
Mhm.
HBCU pageant. So I was like, it took
Uh-huh.
me back. It took me back. I was like, oh yeah, okay.
Your
Oh yes. Yes. Opulence. Yes, I love it. Just that pageantry
Yeah.
that
Uh-huh.
we have in a lot of people don't know, like that we have in our African American community that pageantry that goes back to Africa. You
Right.
like African pageant. Now you can see that African pageantry in real time,
Uh-huh.
but just
Hmm.
when you see it now, when I see some of those countries and their pageantry, I was like, oh, this is where this comes from
Yeah.
in our lived experience.
Hmm.
It's gone on from generations to
Right.
here in America to us. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? So it really took me back. I was laughing because it really took me back to that
Yeah.
Morehouse, AUC, Spelman,
Uh-huh.
Clark, Morris.
Kind of where we started, or it's
Yes,
like,
yes, yes. So I was like, yes.
yeah. So, Ronnie, being from DC, what influenced you is, I guess, being fashion and like things that look good and things that are put together. What inspired you? What kind of
I
led you
guess
to that
you know
direction?
what inspired me because during that time of that 80s, I think that was like really, I guess, homogeneous like time of pop. That's when
Hmm.
pop was, pop culture really run off. So I was in the midst of that, the pop culture of the time, and then the movies of the time. I love old Hollywood, but during that, like in 1984 itself, because it was like doing research for one. When I did worked on Stranger Things, we
Yeah.
was like doing research of because it was like based in 1984, and when we went and did the research
Mm.
on 1984, it was like that was like every movie was like the hit. So it was
Mm.
like
So that was a pivotal
what
moment in our
yeah, it was the
fashion
pivot. Yeah,
movie
and
entertainment. Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
entertainment. So the movies at that time were
Hmm.
the big blockbusters. So you
Yeah.
have all these seminal things that are called pop culture moments that are
Hmm.
still
Right.
reverberate today
Right.
to
Yeah.
people. And then also DC itself. DC is a fashion show now. DC itself, I didn't know how much it was until I went to college and you met people from other places. But like DC, it's like you had to have your stuff laid out. You could not wear
Oh,
anything within a 2 week period. Else people, the people in the class will call you out and stuff like that. So it wasn't until I got to college where I might have wore jeans, the same jean, like the next week. But in DC, that was such a big thing. Other places when I went to college, none of that was not a big thing. I was like, what the hell?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But that was such a big thing in DC. You had to have, you couldn't wear the same clothes, in the black culture. Now, when I was in
Everyone that I
private
know
school,
that's from DC are they dress very well. They are into labels. They know how to dress. That you can't tell them nothing. And I mean every
nothing.
person that I know.
Yeah, you can't tell them nothing. You can't tell. I broke out of that, but you can't tell. But I can't. I did grow up in that, so it is so funny. But I broke out of that in college because I was like, oh, we not,
So you went to
But look, but Lonnie has traveled with me.
uh-huh.
Now he knows. He knows I'll bring bags and stuff. I'll bring bags. So I
Yeah.
like to carry a wardrobe and just have a choice of clothes. That
Yeah.
has
No,
not
you're gonna
that DC hasn't broken out of me.
now Sherry, do you pack light when you travel?
I
Exactly.
have tried to. I try to streamline it. It just never works because I always feel like, well, what if?
Right? It's the what if,
It's the
right?
what if, and I just
Yes.
have to be feel like I have to be prepared.
Right.
Yes, you have to be prepared. That comes from that Boy Scouts for me. It's like the Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts. Always be prepared.
Look at that. Coming back around.
Oh yeah. I absolutely, totally admire people who I can see can do it in one bag and they
Mhm.
can switch it out
Yeah.
and make it work. And it just, I'm a fail every
Sorcery.
time.
That's
I'm
sorcery to
always check a
me.
bag.
Well, I
That
guess
is
I'm a
sorcery to me,
sorcerer.
honey.
I am
I can
always
switch my
checking a
bag really
bag.
quick and easy.
I
Now,
have
Ronnie,
many
I have to
bags.
ask you, how did you get into costume design what and becoming a director? Because you do film, TV, live shows, you do the whole spectrum.
The high school that I went to, Georgetown Day High School in Washington D.C., was private school, the first desegregated school in Washington D.C. And put that out there, history. But they had a very robust theater program where we, even though if you might have been performing on stage, you had to do some tests. And then also we had to do our own makeup. We have a makeup person. They will have a makeup designer, but we had to
Uh-huh.
do our own makeup for the run of the show and stuff like that
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
everything. So we learned how to do our own makeup. I usually work with the costume because I love the art of costumes when I perform. So I will work with the costumes and stuff. And sometimes I'll build sets and stuff like that too. But that's how I got started. And it was such a the program where we had a black box theater. So we did everything, the costumes, the set, with supervision from a teacher. And
Yeah.
then also, the getting them fundraising, getting patrons and stuff. So we learned the business. That started my pedagogy of learning show business
Yeah.
because and then when I got to Morehouse and I went in the drama department at Spelman where I got my degree through, that's why I learned about show business more with the professors there. And that program like built on what I already learned in high school, where if we performed, we still had a what we call lab hours. We had to get, still do production. So I will always work mostly in costume because I love costumes. And so when I start working in the costume lab hours, there'll be like visiting costume designers, coming in, and they were like, "Oh, I like what you're doing." And they were like, one Goldie Hicks, she was like, "Can you come work with me on this professional theater job?" And I was like, "Oh, sure," and I became her assistant.
Nice.
And that's how I started. And
Hmm.
then there was one season with that theater, they brought in the legendary Reggie Ray,
Mm.
from who Reggie Ray
Uh-huh.
was a very celebrated, costume designer in theater. But also Reggie was a professor at Howard University Hospital. But he came down to Atlanta to do on a sabbatical and do a season at with Demandi Productions.
Wow.
So I was hired as his assistant. So
Wow.
with Reggie Ray, he put
That's
me under
history
his
right
wing.
there. That's
Hmm
yeah. Wow. That's to be celebrated. That's great. Love
And
that.
then also with that theater come with Jamandi, I worked with the Bennings, Mr. and Mrs. Benning. They're legendary too. Mr.
Mm-hmm.
Benning is credited bringing the dashiki, you know, and so he designed, brought that African, wear to the stars. So him and his wife, Mr. and Mrs. Benning, they brought that, and so they lived in Atlanta because they went and came back to Atlanta, and so they will work with the theater company too. So I worked under them too. So I was able to work under these two like titans of costume design. Not just black costume theater design,
Uh-huh.
just costume theater design itself,
Yeah.
and stuff.
Nice.
That
So
it,
yeah, you go say.
and then so and it just kind of dominoed. I mean, because you completely really took over the from everything that I've read and certainly what Lonnie has shared about your career. I mean, and he loves to tell me because one of my all time favorites is
Uh
Devil Wears Prada, and I literally screamed. He said, "Well, Ronnie." I was like, "What? What? That is
yes,
the
yes,
that
Devil Wears
is the
Prada.
film."
Oh my gosh, I was lucky. To work on there, and I was an additional costumer, but they had me deal with. They knew they knew I loved the fashion world, so they was like this movie about models having professional models because they had like Giselle and as the clackers. So it was like models coming in. So it was like such a big thing. So they was like, "Oh, we know Ronnie can handle models, because they knew being in New York, I was around and I always be for Fashion Week. I would always take off for Fashion Week, just hang out, and have fun and just see friends who worked in the fashion business. I would take off from, working in TV and film and stuff, just to hang out for Fashion Week. So since they knew I was involved in that world, they was like, "Oh, he'll be great to work with all the fashion shows that we're about to, do in this movie and stuff." But I also on that movie, I knew the people the other costumers and costume crew in there, they're the ones who helped me,
Mm-hmm.
get in the business, help train me in the business. So it was like working with, friends,
Mm-hmm.
there also. So it was just amazing to see, just to see when you're there, like sometimes throughout a whole show, you can see how the show is built,
Mm-hmm.
and to see how Roy worked with Meryl Streep. And I had worked with um Meryl Streep in Manchurian Candidate. So I have already seen that with when Albert Walski designed that,
Mm-hmm.
working for him. And I was a PA on that one, but on this Devil Wears Prada, I was a costumer. So it was even to see that just magic happen, and
Mm-hmm.
having that actor training to see
Hmm.
Meryl Streep to create the character. And
Yeah.
what Meryl Streep really paid attention to, she wanted to know, her looks because she was creating her character,
Hmm.
because she really, included the costume as a layer to her character,
Mm.
which is what I was part of the pedagogy I was taught in theater with,
Hmm.
training in theater. So it
Hmm.
was good to see that, live and in living color. This
The A-list actress,
right,
live in color.
right. To see that, even
Wow.
more,
Yeah.
and that has helped me to inform as a designer, later on to and that's why I tell producers when I work, it's like really, I really, of course I do my prep, with research and, you do boards and you have, all these, thoughts and everything. But really sometimes it really gets in when I'm really discussing with the talent to see how we're going to create this character because it's all about collaboration.
Right.
You know, we have so many hands helping in this medium, artisans and technicians.
Hmm.
And I am so grateful that, that I had training to be an artisan and a technician. And
Hmm.
I try to use that all at the same time. And I try to be and I'm also, since I was, became a producer in theater, I'm always thinking the show business part of it too,
Right.
because sometimes sometimes you have some people who are just artists and it's like they're not thinking about the business and it's like,
Right.
oh no, we here for the, it's the show, we not just show, we show business.
Right.
So we got to see how we're going to make this, and if we can, make this, we got to see how we can make it, what time constraints we have, not just time, budgetary constraints,
Hmm.
um labor constraints,
Right.
and everything.
All these things that
So
you don't know
yes,
that have to, like, you come into account of, for, you have to
yes,
account for. So yeah. So you started so you were at Morehouse. And,
yes.
what was that like, the fashion, like transitioning from DC to Morehouse?
To
So now
more out.
you're a young man,
Yes,
uh,
yes, yes, yes. In
and
Atlanta,
uh-huh. And
Georgia.
Morehouse sits, next to Clark Atlanta University, and you
Oh,
have to walk down the
Morehouse
strip.
sits on the hill. Morehouse sits on the hill.
We're neighbors. But yeah, like seriously, how was that transitioning? Gosh, like I know it was so much fun for me, and I felt so
Oh yes.
passionately inspired.
Oh yes.
You
It
know.
was such a wonder years experience because it's like um well, DC is itself, like I would say, a chocolate city, quote unquote
Hmm.
chocolate city.
Hmm.
So I had that, but to then come to the AUC Center and just see how we, as Black people, we are not a monolith.
Hmm.
The
Right.
diversity of our
Yeah.
experiences, of our
Uh-huh.
colors, you
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
and I love, history and research. So, and I'm a listener, and that was one thing I always listen. I always like sit back and listen first.
Hmm.
A lot of people, and so that's where I've been able to appreciate, our culture with that. So
Hmm.
that's one thing I love, that to experience that diversity of us.
Yeah, it was like, gosh, you hear someone speak, you're like, where are you from? Like, you've never
Right,
heard that dialect if been in contact with someone that's from Boston, a black person from Boston. That
right, right.
and you get that. It is refreshing. You're like, oh wow, like
Yes, yes, yes. And it's refreshing during that time because it was like what the 90s into 2000 or late 90s, all that. So
uh-huh.
it's like that you still had like, we was black men was seen as, starting to seem as monsters because that was the crime bill, you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Yeah,
And all that. And then you also was like that scare of, even with even yeah, I was there at the end of the 9/11, but it was still of that Muslim, because
yeah,
you see all faiths at a HBCU, and
yeah.
so a Muslim,
You got
that was
a
not nothing
got a,
strange to me. That
got a
was
big
nothing
population
weird,
at Morehouse,
you
especially in the
know.
School of Medicine, and then You know, yeah. Hmm.
So it was strange to have that Muslim scare because it's like, what do you, what? You know,
Hmm.
what are you talking about? You
Right.
know, um, but it was, yeah, when that Muslim scared. So that was interesting. But also you have different reference point,
Hmm.
for fashion because,
Right.
you have people from, from
Yeah.
Texas or you have New
Uh-huh.
Orleans, you have the New York,
Uh-huh.
tri-state. You have that
So, yeah, I
tri-state,
was wearing my cowboy boots down the strip. I
they
had my boots. I wore boots, cowboy boots, and some shorts.
couldn't understand it. They could under,
Uh-uh.
the New York boys could
That's in
understand it. They're like,
Oklahoma.
so we have freedom. So in there, that's why I got involved in pageants and the fashion
Hmm.
shows. A lot of you was
Hmm.
involved in fashion shows too. So it was
Uh-huh.
like fashion shows. The fashion shows and pageants. So that was like such a big thing
That's
there.
how
Like
we
it was
met.
such a big thing.
We
Like
did a
the
fashion show
neighborhood
together
would come
at
out.
Spelman. So that show was we did together at Spelman, and we did it together, and that was fun because think that was it was you. I don't even remember the details, but I was able to meet you, work with you,
Right,
and
right. I
became
had
real
came
close.
back. That's when I had,
Yeah.
left, graduate left. But I
Uh-huh.
came back to help
Uh-huh.
Prentice. He was in school. Prentice
Yep.
Anderson, he was in school and he was producing a fashion show.
And so our friend
And
Princess, who now he does costume work in New
yes,
Orleans. He worked on Queen
hmm
Sugar, if I'm not
yeah.
mistaken. Uh huh. Yep.
And
Yeah. Uh huh. Gosh.
we had did, oh yeah, and that's how we met. Like when he had did it, he did that fashion show for
Mhm.
a fundraiser for Katrina.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It was
That's
a
what.
fundraiser for Katrina. Yes.
Wow.
hmm
Hmm.
That's what the reason why I came back, because it was like a fundraiser. And I said, "Oh yeah, I'll help out,"
Yes.
you know,
Uh-huh.
with it. Um, so that's how we met, through a fashion show.
And just like you kind of got some guidance from your fellow costumers, Devil was Prada. You sought after me and you helped me break into the industry, and that's when you called me for Tyler Perry's Why Did I Get Married,
Yeah,
and Why Did
why
I
did I
Get
get
Married Too,
married? That first
and
one.
Tyler Perry.
That
So
was our first
that
Tyler
was,
Perry
oh
show
my God,
together.
you were so influential into all those early Tyler Perry movies. Like you had your hands on every project. Like what was it? How was it working with Medea? Even that was like I never got a chance to work with Medea, but how
Well,
was all
no,
of that?
that was because this how it was, especially because this is before the explosion in Atlanta.
Uh-huh.
And what happened was um the producers, you know, usually for a show coming from New York, starting in New York, we used to like, 3 months prep, 3 months. I mean, it would be movies sometimes 6 months prep, but 3 months prep,
Uh-huh.
and you have this prep time and stuff like that, and you have this full crew, you know.
Hmm.
But then when you came down to Atlanta, and this is before the explosion, well, but now they even going back to this micro budget. But back then they were like, well, you only can have this many people. And you can't, so we
Uh-huh.
can only have, um the shopper could start, but the key costumer can't start. So I was hired
Uh-huh.
on to be the key costumer, but they needed a shopper. So they knew that, design is part of my skill.
Hmm.
So I was the shopper first, until
Hmm.
it was time for the key costumer position started. So they knew like my, full breadth of skill to use.
Right.
So we would go shop,
Hmm. Which you
first for
love
the
to do.
film and everything, which I love to do. Right, that's from the '80s. That mall '80s is still in me. Shopping is that shopping addiction, but so we would shop first, shop for the film, shop for the film, and then have the fittings, and then work on set, you
Uh-huh.
know, and everything, which was great because then, I knew what clothes worked.
Right.
I knew, what
Yeah.
they were thinking, why this outfit is working.
Yeah.
Um,
It's almost
It's
like
not.
you're
It was not.
really
Like it
helping the
was not a
designer.
surprise that day on set because it's like, oh, we. This is why we picked this. I can
Uh-huh.
remind the talent there because sometimes they learning their lines. They like, they might be like, why are we wearing this? I don't want to wear that. And then you could be like, hey, we wearing this because we about to run across this field. Oh, okay, okay, okay. Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you, thank you,
Right.
thank you. Because
Uh-huh. Yeah.
sometimes the talent coming in,
Yeah. Because
sometimes they
you've already you
coming in
broken
from another
down.
movie.
Uh-huh.
Well, look. With I was Janet Jackson's personal. She coming from a tour, so it's like, and that was Janet Jackson's like come. That was her comeback movie too.
Yeah.
So she hadn't been, on a film set,
Yeah.
for a while.
It was
So
just
it was.
so God. Just to be around her, I just had chills on set.
Oh my goodness!
Okay.
Yes,
You
Janet Jackson. Oh my
know.
gosh. And that's what I learned so many lessons with her and her team
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
with Fran who used to do
Mm-hmm.
her hair and makeup, and it just shows brings
Love her.
back to that collaboration and artistry mixed in with technician
Yep.
because Miss Sherry, look, with if a scene was set up and the light was set up and the DP, the director of photography, he would set up the lights. And sometimes on some sets, you know, the director and the DP might be the two kings, or some producers, but sometimes the DP, but honey, those DP will listen, Fran will stop and Fran would say, this light is coming across her face this way. We need to change this. And that's when I learned like you
Somebody
have to
got your
be
back.
skilled.
Uh,
You have to be, we're working together to build this picture, for to build this world.
yeah.
We are all collaborating together to build this world for the audience to come into this world
Right.
to make them go on this journey with us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then look, and first for them to pay that ticket to go on this journey with us.
To pay the ticket.
To go on this journey with us.
Yeah.
So she was to watch her, on some sets, you would see the folly will be with some people not pay attention to hair and makeup,
Uh-huh.
you know. But
Our wardrobe.
Fran was so skilled, with to make sure, Miss Jackson, Miss
Mm-hmm.
Jackson, if you're nasty, Miss Janet Jackson looked a certain way with her face to keep that, what we know as Janet Jackson to the world, on screen. She made sure, she kept Janet Jackson's brand what Janet Jackson wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So shortly after, I guess, so you were working on, because how many movies did you do at Tyler Perry Studio?
Um.
Did you even count? Or how long were you there?
Oh, I don't even know. Let me see, cause sometimes I would like, I would do a movie and then I would jump back to New York, or
Uh-huh.
I'd do a show and jump back to New York and work.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So I did. We did. Why'd I get married? Why'd I get married to? Um, was for Color Girls.
For the girls.
I'm thinking the ones with Janet Jackson, cause
That was amazing. Yeah.
And
with as her personal.
we did a lot of the House of Pain. We did
Um, I
TV
came
shows.
on the last season of House of Pain. Yeah, like the last few seasons of House of Pain on TBS, because House of Pain is still going on.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
BET,
House of Pain
so
still going
I
on.
guess on TBS on the TBS version. But
Uh,
we did the new show For Better For Worse with OWN. That was the
on network.
OWN network, For Better For Worse. Um oh, what was the other show that we did?
Yeah, I remember Tika because that was with Tika Sumter, right?
Oh, Have and Have Nots.
Tika,
Haven't have
Have
not.
and Have
she's,
Nots. That
Yes.
the
yes.
melodrama Have and
Now,
Have
So
the
Nots.
you
clothing
remember
on
I
Yes.
that
told you
show
Tika
was
Tika
phenomenal.
called me and she said, should I do this show?" I was like, "Yes." I was like, "Sylvia and Ronnie is gonna take care of you." Because
Right,
you and Tika
right,
just came off
right.
of Stomp the Yard
Oh
too.
yeah, the clothing on the
Uh,
have-nots was sensational.
Yeah,
And let me tell you
yeah.
about that, y'all. Let me tell you. Let me tell you with that because this just shows like you have to have. Look, I believe in having faith. I believe
Mhm.
faith in God, and that has really helped me.
Uh-huh.
Also, love thy neighbor. I forgot love thy neighbor too because that was at the same time. I was like, what is? We had several shows. It's so many shows, but those shows were like he was doing on a new network, so
Right.
it was, new contracts and stuff like that. So, and then that was with Queen Sylvia,
Yeah,
another my
Sylvia. Oh
co-designer,
my goodness.
co-designer Queen Sylvia. We
Yeah.
had got the gig to design these shows. Um
Now we'll have to bring Queen Sylvia
and
on one of our shows.
Queen Sylvia,
Yeah.
yes, my
She's
sister.
designing Bel Air. She's about to go back and do Bel Air, so we can interview her and her process and how her transition and how she crossed paths with Ronnie as well. So it'll be kind of cool.
But in
Exactly.
in
Absolutely.
any in any um in any studio or workforce, the sad
Hmm.
thing is, sometimes we could be our own, overseers as a people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody is not happy to see, you win.
Hmm.
That's gonna happen to any
So,
stage of life. Everybody's not gonna
yep,
see happy you win.
absolutely.
And also it was a new time in Atlanta. It was still, work in Atlanta was picking up. So, but still there was not a lot of people who, had experience,
Yeah,
working in the
it
business,
was short lived.
Um
It was before
so
this transition of the before Black
right.
Hollywood Atlanta. Like this is just building up to that.
Building up to it. So the stores in Atlanta, were ran through, because there was
Hmm.
like at the time when we see like we had Vampire Diaries and stuff that going on,
Hmm.
um Drop Dead Diva. So you had if some other, movies coming in. So all the stores were ran through, because they couldn't, there was no studio services set up, So
Hmm.
working from New York and doing movies, working with, doing international movies and working in movies in New York, we're
Hmm.
used to like, studio services. We used
Yep.
to, having somebody shop and do fittings in LA and
Hmm.
Right.
then come and send the clothes, or something like that. Or we have to, did one movie, we did, some of the shoot here and then the rest of the shoot in South Africa,
Right.
and doing all that and sending clothes, doing the carnet and all that. Already had experience doing that, but the all the malls was ran through. It like be at back then
Yeah.
in Neiman's Last Call. Neiman's Last Call used to have the same like designer stuff from like 5 years ago. And it's like y'all still
Yeah.
charging this for
Yeah.
this has been sitting here for 5 years,
Uh-huh. It was
Look,
like
and then you see and then you see some Atlanta housewife in there.
yeah. The fashion
But
hadn't caught up with the
right.
population what had was going on in Atlanta. And I
So
remember we would pull. I would send letters to showrooms and
right,
get
right.
clothes, sent in.
Right, and then that was back. Thank God for that, because that was back, in New York when the fashion labels or the fashion houses would send you stuff
Right.
Yep.
or would let you go to pull out stuff,
Uh-huh.
because you could go right to the showroom in New York and pull it out and da da da
Uh-huh.
da, in the studio service in New York. I knew, at Saks it would be Connie, Michael, and Wanda.
Uh,
At Barney's, it would be Laura and Jackie.
mhm.
Bloomie's had Carrie, and then we have Miss Betty at Bergdorf. so, so my relationship with those people,
Was
was
key.
great. So what
Right.
I did, this is what I did, Miss Sherry. I had to make sure this show was a success because if it was not a success, look, they would have blamed Sylvia and I, Queen Sylvia and I.
Uh-huh.
Like I said, some people were not, not happy when you get, you know, they
Right.
they seem like you might not be worthy enough, not be deserved it. So, no matter where you might work. So
Mhm.
this is what I had to do. While Queen Sylvia would stay, Atlanta, I throw my stuff. my bags in the car. Look, sometimes Lonnie would be with me.
Oh, the stories to
I
tell.
would drive up to New York in my
Like I
car.
got a
Now, look,
job.
the studio is not paying for this. I'm working on faith.
Yeah.
I am working on faith. I
Hmm.
would
Right,
drive up, pay the gas for a 12 and a half hour ride all the way up to New York.
Hmm.
right.
Go
Okay.
in New York, hit all the stores and
Uh-huh.
stuff. Work from, when the showrooms open at 11, 10 and 11 o'clock
Wow.
till to
Yeah.
11 p.m. because I would get with David Melton.
Uh-huh. David from
We go
DC.
shop and then we'll put it in the FedEx,
Uh-huh.
shop at one store and we throw it in a box at FedEx and send it off and go to another store, go to
Yep.
another showroom, go and throw it in a box, you know,
Yep.
and send it down because,
Hmm.
you know,
Yep.
like have and
Wow.
have nots was like, and for better for worse was like these new pole and Love Thy Neighbors, these new tent pole shows on OWN,
Uh-huh.
Right,
and
right.
Mr. Perry was, this is his first foray with OWN, to bring, put OWN on the map. So he had his faith on trying to do that, he was trying to,
Hmm.
really put OWN on the map. So it was like, boom, let's do this, and look, I knew Mr. Perry wanted. I said Mr. Perry wants Dynasty. That's what he wants. And the thing
Exactly. It
was,
Grew up
was.
watching soap
Yes,
opera.
it was.
and I love soap opera, and I love soap
Oh my
opera.
Yes.
God, you still love soap
Yes,
opera.
it was. It
I
was
love soap
Dynasty.
opera.
Yes.
So I said that's what he wants, and we got to deliver. And that's the thing. With Mr. Perry, he's like, look, whose name is that on on the studio? And it's
That's
like, let's make, this is what, and you have to make it happen. So I got in my car, drove
Wow.
up, paid stuff,
Wow.
slept on somebody's couch, and went to all those showrooms and stores and sent all that stuff so we could have a stock of